Hello there, it's Michael here at the Village Optician, and have you ever noticed those little black spots that float about in your vision? Okay, little squiggles, that's a very technical term, lines or spots that just seem to be floating about in your vision. Yeah, okay, if you have noticed your floaters. So that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today. So floaters are these little black spots, squiggles, lines that can just seem to float about in your vision. Okay, now we're talking about the ones that they're sort of suspended, but they'll move and drift and almost flow a little bit in your vision there. And of course, talking about them is making me see mine as I'm doing this. It's very, it is annoying because the more you think about them, the more you see them. The less you think about them, the less you'll see them. That kind of thing. So I thought I'd talk about floaters because we're kind of getting into sort of floater season. I'll explain that in a minute. So what you're actually seeing when you see a floater, and it's that kind of thing where we get people coming in sometimes quite worried about it because they will be like, well, I noticed the other day this black speck, it looks like a fly there, and I've tried to like shoo it away, like squat it away, and it just isn't going. It seems to be there in my vision all the time. People do get concerned because if they've never had that before, they wonder what this little thing is in their vision. Now, the good thing about normal floaters is they're absolutely harmless. When they're not associated with anything else, floaters by themselves are normal. Unfortunately, they're natural. It's all part of the aging process of the eyes. Again, people who are very short-sighted will make more of them as well. So what's going on? Okay, so floaters are these little lumps and strands of the jelly fluid inside your eye. Now, the jelly fluid inside your eyeball is called vitreous, and bits of that will shrink and form these little clumps and strands. Okay, and then they become opaque. So obviously normally it's transparent so you can see through it, but as they shrink and they change, they form these lumps and, as I say, these little strands, and what you're seeing is the shadow that little lump or strand will cast onto the back of your eye. Okay, so you get these, and when you make a new one, you're very, very aware of it, okay, because you've never seen that before. It's a brand new thing in your vision, so you're going to see it. Now the good news with that is, over time you'll get used to that. It will go away. Sometimes they sort of break up into smaller bits, but usually your brain just gets used to that, and the less you think about it, the less you will see it. Okay, so it's these, as I say, these little lumps that have formed from the shrinking of little parts in the vitreous there. Okay, now there's a few things to consider with floaters. All right, normal floaters like that, what you'll find they'll do is they'll kind of drift. Now, if you were to suddenly look over to the left, the floaters should slowly drift across, okay, just slowly drifting about as you move your eyes around and almost catching up with you as you follow them round, okay. Now, if you've got a fixed black spot in your vision, say in the middle of your vision, for example, that is constantly fixed right in the middle, and it's in the middle no matter where you look, sort of thing, it's always in the same place and it doesn't drift or move, then that could be something other than a floater, and that needs to be checked out by your optician as soon as you can. Be checked, okay. It's always worth talking to your optician about these different things if you ever experience anything new. And the thing to remember with this is, if something's new, you're always best to talk to an optician and get it checked first, okay. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why you see these floaters like that. Now, as I said, we're coming into floater season. That's what I call it personally, because I do see more people with floaters this time of year. We start to get a little bit more people with floaters this time of year because it's bright, because it's sunny. Okay, so what you're seeing, as I said before, is the shadow that these floaters will cast onto the back of your eye. So the little floater itself, you're not going to see that in your eye, okay? And they're tiny, a lot of the time they're microscopic, but they'll cast a shadow onto the back of the eye, and now the shadow is much bigger than the floater. And if you think about it, if you went to an old-fashioned cinema that had a good old-fashioned projector, and someone stood up in front of it, and then the light was projected and hit them, and then they would cast a huge shadow on the screen, much bigger than a normal person would be. Or if you had a torch and you had your hand, the closer your torch is to the hand, the bigger the shadow will be on the wall, and if you sort of move it away, the smaller the shadow will be. It's that kind of thing. So what you're seeing is the shadow that the floater casts onto the back of your eye. So you're seeing the shadow drift about the back of your eye, okay? So that's kind of blocking that little bit of light. So that's why we see the floater floating about, okay? So that's why you see them. As I said, new ones, you'll get used to them. They will sort of eventually go away over time. They don't go away, but you stop seeing them, kind of thing. Okay, the less you think about them, the less you'll see them. You should never see them in the dark. Okay, you should never see floaters in the dark. You need something bright to look at, which is why this time of year we get more people coming in noticing them, because it's sunny, the evenings are lighter, there's more light about. If you're looking at a white wall or a white screen, a white book, that's when you tend to see them. Or if you're tired or you're not really focusing on anything. Quite often we used to get people coming in after a summer holiday. They've been abroad, they've lain on a sun lounger, they've not really been looking at anything in particular, and they've just noticed, they can see in the sky these little floaty lines, and they're wondering what that is, because they're not really focused on anything, and it's just a lovely sunny environment, so they're going to see these floaters. Okay, now there's a few things, as I said before, there's a few things to kind of think about with floaters, a few little warning signs. If you get a sudden increase in floaters, suddenly a load of floaters, and especially if that's with flashing lights, you must speak to an optician or optometrist straight away. Okay, now that can sometimes be the sign of a posterior vitreous detachment, because the vitreous jelly inside the eye is attached to the back of the eye, and if you get a bit of that shrinking that's near the back of the eye, it can pull on the retina. Okay, and that pulling creates these flashes. Okay, as it pulls on the retina, it stimulates part of the retina. Now, if you get these flashes, it doesn't mean that there's actually a problem with that, because once that's come away, it's done, it's fine. But as it pulls, it can sometimes tear a little bit of the retina, and that needs to be sealed up if that happens. So that is important to get that checked as soon as possible. So can't stress that enough. If you've got flashing lights, speak to your optician. If you get flashing lights or a sudden increase in floaters, like suddenly you see a lot of floaters in the eye, you must speak to your optician straight away. Okay, but like I say, normal floaters, completely harmless. They're a nuisance. There's no magic laser that's going to take them away yet. I say yet, they're always working on magic things like that, and there's no cosmetic operation at the moment that's going to remove them, so we're kind of stuck with them. So you may as well enjoy them floating across this lovely blue sky that we're getting at the minute. Okay, so I hope that explains a little bit about floaters, and I shall speak to you all soon. Bye bye.